Hello there.
Hello, are you Lisa?
Yes, I am.
I'm Fawn. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, sure. How many people are on this committee?
Um, five, I believe.
Okay.
So they can see us, but we can't see them. They're having some technical issues. Just got a text from Christy, one of our co-presidents. Thank you for your patience, Lisa. We're working with DCAT for the first time tonight to make this virtual and in person. And I think that that's probably what they're dealing
Oh,
with.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure they can figure it out.
Thank you.
Okay. They won't be able to hear us until we go live.
They're going live.
Who makes it? I don't know. Do I call to order or do I wait till?
Can our guests hear us? Juan's nodding yes.
I can hear you.
Oh, excellent. Right. Okay. So I am going to call this meeting of the Danvers Accessibility Commission to order tonight.
Christy?
Yes.
It's very echoey.
I'm not on. I didn't know.
Oh. Okay. Thank you for the information. We will see what we can do about that. The mic's picking up.
Yeah, what if you maybe slide mine closer to me so it's away from hers? I don't know if that would make a difference.
Maybe I just speak louder and I get picked up on multiple mics. Is that better? No. Okay. No pause.
Generally, it's going to echo if there's more than one microphone near each other. So you need to mute your individual microphones and
Yeah.
only put it on when you're speaking.
Thank you. They don't seem to mute individually. They are all on.
That's why it's,
Okay.
it's catching everybody.
Yeah.
We could mute them on the board. I know how to do
We
that.
need somebody to help us with the board. Do you know?
Yeah, if you want to spin it.
Now we can't hear you, Christy. You may be aware of that.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Okay. And apologies for the sound. We are hoping to get that fixed. We're getting some feedback here as well. Okay. Did everybody have a chance to, if everybody had a chance to see the minutes, I'd take a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting, our April meeting. Okay.
I'm not sure if you want feedback, but now there's a tremendous amount of static and we can't hear you.
Okay.
We have our technical
At least that's for me.
I just pushed it over
just
so
slid
JD
it.
could see it, but I didn't touch anything.
Nothing's taut.
Is it still staticky for you?
No, static is gone for me.
Okay.
The echoing is still there, but static is gone.
Okay. Okay. I have a motion from Mara. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes from our April meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
And then we also
Aye.
have the minutes from our May 19th meeting that we need to approve. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? I have a motion from Mara.
I move.
I have a second from Fawn. So all those in favor of approving the minutes from May 19th, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
motion approved. Thank you. We do have a guest this evening, and we're going to start with our guest, Lisa, from the Salem Disability Resource Center. We can hear you if you would like to give us, I didn't know if you were giving us a presentation or if you were just going to be answering questions that we might have.
Well, why don't I start with a little overview of what we do?
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
We're an independent living center, and within the continental and territories of the United States, there is an associated independent living center. So within Massachusetts, there are 10 of us. We're split up by territory. We cover 25 cities and towns from Melrose to Rockport. We work with anybody of any age with any type of disability. We don't require any proof. We just require self-disclosure, and none of our programs and services cost anything. Everything is free. So we work with students in high school, helping them understand how to best improve their communication skills and advocacy skills, also to understand what they want to do after high school. We work to support people living in nursing homes to come out of nursing homes and back into the community. We work with a large variety of adults, and a lot of those folks are looking for, the main priority for most of those folks is housing, because they all require subsidized housing. But it might be also connecting in with benefits such as SSI, SSDI, Mass Health, SNAP benefits, and the like. We do a lot of political advocacy. We work on a local, state, and national level to support accessibility and inclusion. And we do a lot of work with our legislators to be able to create bills and implement changes to be able to create a better accessible community. We have a variety of programs that we do individually. We have a monthly housing options workshop that we put on via Zoom, so folks can come to us and at least get a start on the wide variety of applications for housing, with the caveat that to obtain housing is a minimum of 5 years and as much as 12 to 13 years to find and identify housing. So we do a wide variety of things with a wide variety of people, and we have been in business for 36 years. So we've been around a long time. So that's the quick dime overview.
Wow, thank you. That sounds all amazing and fantastic. What, go ahead, yes,
Lisa,
Mara.
where are you located?
We are located in Salem at the Shetland Office Park.
Were you a different name at one point in time? No?
Lisa, I don't know if you heard the question. Was the center under a different name previously?
In the past, it was called the Independent Living Center of the North Shore and Cape Ann. About 5 years, we changed our name to Disability Resource Center. We wanted something short, something that would identify straight off what we do.
Excellent, thank you. That makes sense. I can open up if people have additional questions. Fawn, go ahead.
Lisa, where does your funding come from?
The majority of our funding comes from state contracts, and we also have federal contracts. We also have a variety of smaller, different contracts that fund different programs.
Thank you. Other questions? Fawn, go ahead.
I got another one. How did you identify the needs of your populations that you serve? I mean, obviously you would have had to have chosen from a huge quantity of services that you could be providing that I'm sure are all needed and welcome, but how did you prioritize?
So the spirit of the independent living movement is that the consumer drives the bus. So the consumer is coming to us with what they need. Our motto is nothing about us without us. So traditionally, most places are set up as a kind of a medical model where the expert's going to fix you. And within the independent living movement, the person knows what's best for them. We support them. We offer peer counseling, and we offer supports, resources, opportunities to understand paths to get to where they want to go and support to get there. But the individual is coming to us with a need.
That's great. Thank you. I'm curious to know what would you like for local accessibility or disability commissions like us to know and or do within our communities?
I think one of the main things that I would suggest is go through your town and look for true accessibility. When you really start looking, you will see things that are not accessible that you think are. One of the things that we do is we have an accessible business program for all people. And what we do with that program is we go out to businesses and parks and recreations and do an ADA light survey. So we know what the regulations are, and we can go through and we can spot things that are helpful, and we can identify things that are kind of a challenge. And working with the businesses, again, they invite us. We don't go in without an invitation, but we can make suggestions about small things that they may be able to do that don't cost a lot of money that can improve accessibility. Now, a lot of our towns are really old, especially places like Salem. So a lot of the buildings are not accessible. But some of the municipal buildings now have retrofit so that they do have an accessible option. So within that, signage is important, parking is important. There are regulations about the number of parking spaces that are required per 25 spaces. You need to have one accessible parking spot for every 25 spaces. Little things like railings and the percentage of incline on ramps, those things are really important. And so that is a simple way to start, to look at your municipal buildings, the Council on Aging, of course, the town hall, public works department, those types of things where people might interact on a regular basis, the libraries. You could really find a lot of opportunity with that and be able to create a more accessible community.
Thank you. Would organizations like commissions such as us go through you? Should we go through an organization like the Institute for Human-Centered Design for doing those audits if we are not an expert in that particular need.
And if you were interested, we'd be happy to give you some training and education on that. It's pretty straightforward. It has to be 36 inches in, a doorway and a walkway. And there's a lot of repetitiveness that is part of the accessibility. We do have a measurement tool that we'd be happy to share with you and be able to go through that with you. Once you get it, it's not hard to follow. And there are certain tools that we use that I'm not sure where we got them because it's been a long time, but we have a percentage grade stick so that we can see what the percentages on the grades. For ramps, we have a door pusher that will tell you how many pounds of pressure it takes to open the door, those kinds of things. And it's surprising the little things that you run into. I had an experience where I was using a pharmacy that was compounding. It's in Beverly. And so when I went to pick up the medicine, they did have ramps, but they had two big old flower pots on either side. So they didn't have ramps. And who's going to a pharmacy but someone potentially with a disability? The other thing is, what does your housing look like? Advocating for not affordable housing, because affordable housing is not affordable. Affordable housing means you need to make at least $70,000. People with disabilities primarily are working at least below the poverty line, if not worse. And that is not affordable housing. Subsidized housing is what we need. We need to advocate. You see the big up on, what is it, Maple Street, where they've leveled half the block? What's going in there? And is any of that going to be subsidized? And that's hard because contractors want to make as much money as possible. So they're going to put up things that, look what happened on Rantoul Street in Beverly. It's a canyon, but they're all ridiculously expensive. People cannot afford it. The other piece of that is frustrating is most of those places are required to have a certain number of affordable housing, but a lot of the businesses choose to pay the fine rather than do it because in the long run, they make more money. So it's hard because everything always drills down to money. But being able to look at that and advocate, I think it's the Fairweather here in Danvers you have, and there's a couple other places within Danvers. But looking at that also is a big piece. And the other piece that's important is to maintain proper bus routes. And because public transportation is really important, that may not be something within your purview because it's an MBTA business, but those are the types of things. People need to get around. People need to have an affordable place to live, and they need access to services.
Absolutely. Thank you. I don't know if I never figured out if you actually can see us, but a bunch of us just made eye contact on the bus routes because we've been trying to, as a community, trying to get our bus routes back. So thank you. I was furiously taking notes. Other questions that have come up? Fawn, go ahead.
I'm curious to know how you have communicated with the non-disabled community around you, both legislative and also residents, to raise awareness not only of what you offer and do, but to try to educate about the needs of the population that you serve and how successful that's been for you, what worked, what didn't, what do you recommend for people like us that are just starting that process?
We do a lot of outreach. I have spoken at multiple Rotaries and Chambers of Commerce. We do a lot of tabling at social events. We'll be at Senior Day in the Park in Salem. We're at those types of events to be able to educate the public about what we do. So there is a lot of outreach. A lot of the senior housing and subsidized housing buildings, we do a lot of presentations there so people will know what we have to offer them. So we do try to reach out to the community in as many ways as we can. We have a strong social media presence. So you do that, and you try to create good relationships with your legislators so that they understand why we're advocating for certain things. The other piece that becomes helpful is it becomes reciprocal because they will also reach out to us when they have a constituent in need. So there's an ability to kind of support them in solving their own problem. And that may be something that happens in Danvers, whether someone approaches town hall about something and is looking for some sort of accommodation or whatever it might be.
Excellent. Yeah, that actually gave me an idea of just making sure that we have resource lists together. So thank you. We can start pulling those up. Other questions?
Sure, yeah. How does the training you offer work? Is it like a set schedule? Is it paid training? Or is it just kind of like you come in and you guys kind of tell us what we need to know?
It was hard to hear the question.
Oh, sorry. Are there like kind of set scheduled training sessions, or do you kind of just take the individuals as they come? Because I've tried to get in with certain ones with the Massachusetts Office of Disability, and they have like very structured times that fill up real quick, and it would be nice to have like a more local, smaller presence that you could attend and not have to wait like 6 months to get on the next, training, set of seatings.
Again, I trying to answer your question. I would say that, are you talking about when we're supporting consumers or when we're doing different training sessions?
Yeah.
Because
yeah, if you want
with
I
our
think he was
consumers,
at-
they set the
spec-
schedule.
Yeah,
Some
specific to
people we meet
training.
with, some people we meet with weekly. And a lot of folks, when they come to us, they have a goal and they decide when they've met that goal, and then they can say, thanks, I'm on my way. Some people are lifers, they just need someone to answer their questions and kind of listen to their troubles and be able to support them in that way. We have folks who will drift off and then come back 4 months later, 5 months later, 2 years later. They know we're here for them, and they know they can access our services in the manner that they choose, for as long as they choose. And then if they feel like they're done, we can close the case. But then 2 years from now, they're having trouble with their landlord, and they can come back on.
Thank you. I think also JD was asking specific to trainings. Do you have a set schedule for trainings, or are they more ad hoc, like we would ask for a training and you'd create it?
And we would be happy to pull a training together for anybody who wants it. We have certainly, we had interns a couple of years ago from Salem, and we did a training session for them because they were doing the accessible business program on their own for Salem. So we just pulled it together, and it gave them an opportunity to sit with our community liaison, go through the process, understand the tool, understand the pieces of equipment that you need, all that kind of thing. So not very complicated. You could do it in an afternoon.
Cool.
Excellent. Thank you. That's great news. I think that's helpful, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions? I guess maybe also kind of along the lines of the question that I asked before, but what do you think, aside from auditing, let me back up, sorry. I will still have, as Mara said, anesthesia brain today. As far as education, do you think that there is like a priority of what we should be looking to do within Danvers to help make our community more aware of accessibility challenges?
Mm-hmm. Part of that could also entail other types of understanding what a reasonable accommodation is, understanding the difference between a therapy animal and a service animal is very important, understanding what a reasonable accommodation would look like, understanding that people might need communication in different formats. Some of that might be a volume change, some of that might be large print. Having the opportunity within maybe the town website to be able to click a button and have it be large print, or have some sort of screen reader would be really important. We have a Braille printer. We can offer different types of information in Braille. Also looking at the opportunity to create less language barrier. One of the things we have on our website is at the top bar, there's multiple different types of flags. And if you click on the flag that you want, it changes the entire website into that language. So if you speak Spanish, Creole, Russian, Portuguese, whatever it is, you would be able to access the information. Something like that is small. You'd have to talk to your webpage person, but that is accessibility. So that does help a lot.
Excellent. Thank you. You've given us a lot to think about, which is fantastic. So thank you. Any last questions or comments? Otherwise, thank you so much, Lisa, for your time and for your patience too, as we figured out our new system. You're welcome to stay if you want, but you're also welcome to have the rest of your evening to yourself. Oh,
Well, I have another
one question.
Lisa, on your website, are there resources that this group could pull from?
Yes. Within our website, there is a page of useful links, and we have them by category. So you can click on to, food resources, and you'll have access to like the SNAP and this and the that. So look on there and pick your category, and there should be some useful information in that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Have a lovely evening.
And a happy Memorial
Okay.
Day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay. So next on our agenda is an update on voter access. I didn't know if do you have an update, Fawn?
Hey, Jasmine, will you
I
just
don't
remind
know if
these
the
papers
photo
we
that I
need to-
very late sent to Jasmine is something that you guys can see. I did take a picture of the accessible voting booth, if you will, at the last election, and it's basically a table with a chair so that people can sit, and it has a special screen. I can try to share my screen, but I have to say I've never done this before. So here
I will say
we
your
go.
description is pretty accurate.
If you want.
I work at the elections, and that it's a table. Yeah. And in actuality, most of the time, we will offer to assist. The people who are working can assist for if somebody needs it, but it isn't as accessible as it should be. Yeah.
Right, and it has, they do have volunteers that are happy to read ballots to people. I believe they said there is Braille accessibility, but I'm not positive about that, and I didn't write it down at the time.
Okay.
But certainly large print on the screen, certainly a chair, but the chair doesn't have arms. The desk does not look like it's wheelchair accessible. And it certainly doesn't have a tremendous amount of privacy. It
No, it
doesn't have the
doesn't.
same screening off that you have if you're standing at one of the more traditional booths. So, I mean, that's what they make available, and I think it has a lot of versatility, but I think if we're committed to taking it to the next level, I don't think that it probably is ideal. That being said, the other options that we looked at were incredibly expensive, and I don't know if we have any sense yet of what our funding situation is. So I guess my initial thought is, I wonder if there's a way to improve on what we have.
Yep.
And try to address perhaps its limitations before purchasing one of the other booths, or maybe during some of the training that we are looking into, we could find out about funding sources that would help us afford one of the more accessible voting booths.
And I did do a little work on the funding situation. I also work with some at elections is Kathy Simon, who is parking enforcement. And so I asked kind of what if we were to be able to use handicap parking violations fines for funding, what would that look like? And she said it's about $600 a month, which could be significant amount for using for education and for accessibility changes. So next up, Jasmine and I are meeting with Steve Bartha to say, one, kind of figure out what are the expectations, how much are we pushing, how much are we supposed to be just, advising, and then also to discuss what would it take to get funding. So I think I like your idea of starting, kind of what changes can we make without a lot of money, but then I still think we should have the goal of getting the accessible voting booths because that would make a big difference. So, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
I didn't really have anything else.
Well, thank you. That was very helpful. Any other additional comments on voter access?
I mean, I was there recently for that election. Yeah, it's definitely tight. I mean, for me personally, I think like literally a bigger bigger booth.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing for me, just because I felt like I was out there, you know, people could probably pretty easily hear what we were discussing
Yeah.
or something like that. Plus, I have to be able to discuss it with someone who's writing it down for me. That's the main thing for me. Yeah, just the biggest booth, the bigger booth, and then outside of that, there's probably a lot of things that could be done for,
Yep.
you know, visual and, you know, I don't know, any like some different mobility impairments that could require like some kind of special seating or something like that, or
Right.
like something to help them get into their seat, you
Yeah.
know, like a bar.
Yeah, and closer to the doors, because,
Yeah.
you know, some of the precincts
Oh,
are
yeah,
really
true, 'cause
far.
it's, yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
I've never gone with my son, my husband went with him once, and I know it was the same thing, like, he had to read it, but it wasn't, you know, everybody.
Yeah, you're kind of like,
Really.
talk quieter.
we train ourselves to not listen. So, Fawn, go ahead.
I'm just remembering that they also said for people who are unable to get into the actual building, they will bring a ballot out to the car. And I have to admit, my initial reaction to that was, feels like it sort of violates some sort of
So-
confidentiality or expectation of privacy
Yep.
or
I will
something,
say-
while at the same time being extremely accommodating and being logical.
Wait a minute, doesn't that
But
violate-
that seemed something perhaps to discuss.
Yes, no, you're
Maybe,
right.
maybe not by us, but perhaps somewhere.
Yeah, no. So it's not a violation of law. The only people who are, so they take them out in a folder, and the only people who do it are wardens or the town clerk or assistant town clerk. So they're people who have been sworn to, like, you know, voter confidentiality. And it's the same kind of level of trust as when you do your mail-in ballot. So, you know, when that happens, we separate the envelope from the ballot. We don't look at the ballot until the envelopes are logged, and then they go in a pile. So but I get it. It doesn't feel
But
private.
Right.
So
It
it's,
doesn't feel inclusive.
right, and it's not
I'm sorry, we
inclusive.
can't get in the building, we'll bring it out.
Exactly,
It's just that-
yeah.
I see that more.
No, I
It
absolutely.
sends the
And
wrong message, you know.
we had multiple people who had a very hard time physically getting across the field house to
Right.
the precincts that were further away. And there are wheelchairs available for usage during the day, but I learned that one of them is broken. And so somebody didn't have footrests, so it was like nobody could push the person in the chair.
Yeah.
So there are definitely a lot of improvements. And I think, you know, doing an accessibility audit of that whole process would be valuable. We're not having another election until March, but that gives us enough time to kind of get the plan in place. So that, I think that could be a good next step. Kind of figuring out a checklist. And even if we can do that training from the Salem Disability Resource Center before that happens, maybe voter accessibility could be one of our first practice sessions.
I'd be willing to do the training, Gina, you're, for.
Oh, yeah.
interested
No, I'm
in that, you know
interested.
what I mean, because I think it's, if you're in cheer, so I think it's more helpful to have somebody show, somebody like.
Exactly,
oh,
yep.
Go there, it's like, yeah, well, you know, like the ramp thing, people just think it's a ramp, when the wheelchair just can't. there are
Exactly,
certain
yeah.
things, And it's dangerous, you know.
Right.
Or and if you're pushing a wheelchair too,
Yeah.
like be able to like lose control going down the ramp and yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Anyways.
There's a lot of other things, just like stairs, like coming into the town hall. My daughter's visually impaired. She
Right.
can't tell the difference in the stairs, and she's gone down them.
Yeah, so,
Mhm.
So just basic taping and different things like
Yep.
that that
Right.
businesses could do very
oh,
simply.
be simply, so somebody
And
doesn't.
It would improve a lot
Well,
of people.
right,
Yeah.
and just even for
Yeah.
everybody, elderly
Yes.
people, whatever, just to be able to.
Yep.
Yes.
So I have an idea for kind of work for our next meeting is if, you know, we did prior to our early meetings of thinking about like the reasons that brought us here. If each of us from our own disability and ability lens kind of made a list of places in town that you think we should audit, and then also aspects of accessibility that we want to make sure that are there. Because I think it, you know, and then I will look into training, see what that looks like, if it's in person or if they could do it virtually for us. I will follow up. have to stop talking so I can take notes. Okay, any other discussion on voter access specifically?
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if it falls under our purview, but when I think about access, I think about getting to and from the polls. And
Yep.
am not aware, is there a program already that citizens can identify themselves as needing transportation and then a volunteer can actually pick them up and take them there and
Yeah.
home?
I don't know. I will ask Kathy. Or Stephanie. That's a really good question. I know that in the past, I've heard of each political party having volunteers to take people, but I don't know about anything from a town perspective. And I do think that the senior center also does. But again, you know, from your home to the polls, that's a good question and a very valuable service. Okay, cool. I've added that to my list. Okay. So let's see. We next on our list also has to do with obviously accessibility. What a coincidence. Yes. Oh yeah. Sorry, Jody.
It's
Yeah.
okay. So, when we were talking about the audit of the voter access, it sounded like we were talking a lot about like the actual like going to go vote. Were we also like for an audit thinking about like the how to register to vote, like that process even before like the actual election?
I think that's valuable too.
Okay.
Yes.
The other thing is that would be, I know they do register people at the ballot,
Mhm. Yep.
and they did not have accessibility of people there when my child tried to register there.
Okay.
During, when I was voting, she
Yep.
was with me. So we need to look at sign language.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
having things in already printed versus someone speaking it, multi-language, stuff like that.
Absolutely. Okay. Can you be sure to add those aspects on your list for next time? Thank you.
Those are my babies.
And I actually also was just thinking about from a physical space, like bathroom access, and what bathrooms are available. So, yeah, just from voting, we have a big list.
Yeah.
And does it have, if you had someone who couldn't make it that far into the field house, I know it's set up by precinct, does it have to be if someone, you know, say someone couldn't make it all the way to the field house, even just being able to have somebody vote right when you come in, does it have, you know what I mean?
They can do that,
Okay.
yes, but then it then still has to be taken in a folder to
Okay.
the
Right.
precinct's
To the-
ballot box.
Right,
Because
okay.
they're counted
Oh,
by
right,
precinct based
okay.
on where the person is registered and,
Right.
yeah. So, but that's not, I mean, that's something that happens already. So, okay. Registration process, okay. Good big list. And I think, you know, not to have this like necessarily take priority over any other project, I think this is a good thinking project for the next election cycle because when we go into March, we are entering the 2024 presidential election, and so we're going to have more people voting than in a year like this year. So it's a good project to kind of focus on. So thank you. Okay, so next, are we good? Okay, cool. I don't ever, always feel free to interrupt me. I try to do things like step by step with the whole Robert's rules because it's an official meeting, but I'm not officially. So, JD, do you want to give us an update on the walk signal, where we are with the grant and everything?
Sure, yeah. So at this point, we've had the meeting with Emmy Hahn from the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative. And, you know, that went well. It was very educational. And she kind of told us that we have to have the application in by June 2nd. So we ended up having a meeting with
Brian and
Josh. Yeah, Brian and Josh. And Jasmine. And we ended up getting the application filled out, and we voted on it. That's why we did that emergency vote. So that should be on its way there?
Yep, so what we voted on was a letter of support, saying that the grant that this is, it's the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative, and they would get a consultant to come in and do kind of all that legwork of figuring out what needs to happen to get the accessible walk signals. So yeah, I guess now we wait.
Yeah, because essentially that would become it's now become part of like a bigger project to some degree. So once they kind of come in and talk to us, I'm sure that will open our eyes to some more things that, you know, we didn't think about. So it's inevitably going to snowball a little bit and become a bigger project, but I'm still keeping that as like the clear objective that was the genesis of this, was to get the, you know, the pedestrian walk signals, the accessible ones put in. So right now we're kind of at that waiting stage, but yeah, I don't know.
I'm trying to remember, did she say fall?
I can't remember.
Okay. My mental calendar says it's still in the same calendar year, so I think we should find out fall-ish about this. So, because their grant cycle opens up in May for each year. Okay. So, thank you, and thank you for getting that ball rolling. I think that this is also the first time that we've, as members, have met with town departments and kind of helped. I mean, Jasmine has done a lot to help introduce other departments to the fact that we exist, but this is the first time we were like, oh, hey, we're working on something together. So I think it went fairly well.
Oh yeah, it seemed cool. Like they were really interested in it, the town employees, and it felt like it was something that everybody wanted. You know, it didn't feel like we were pulling any teeth, didn't feel like we were pushing any kind of, you know, extra agenda that they weren't excited about. Like everyone was kind of gung ho about it. So
yeah, and something that did come up in that process is we realized that the town does not have an ADA or accessibility plan.
Right.
Like a strategic plan for accessibility. Projects have just come up ad hoc, and so that's something that I have on my research list of like trying to find local communities that are similar to us that have plans and seeing what they look like. So that can be another project that we help push on. So, any questions about this project or where we're going with it? Okay. So the next thing on our agenda is developing liaisons. So Lauren, you apologize when you came in for not making it to the Human Rights and Inclusion.
Yes.
We didn't end up doing it because I checked in with Jasmine and they had a lot of stuff going on their agenda already.
Right.
So, and I was like, you know what, let's just wait. But we do, down the line, want to go to a Human Rights and Inclusion Committee meeting to say, hey, this is who we are. We'd love to work with you. And Jasmine floated the idea of possibly having a liaison to that committee or other committees too, but specifically Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. Obviously, we would have to go to them and make sure that they are open to that as well. But I wanted to bring it up here and see if there was anybody who was interested in doing that role. So a couple. I mean, we don't have to have. You can have more than one, or we can have people like kind of rotate through. So
I would rotate through.
okay. So everybody. Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I was like, as long as it's not me. I mean, nothing against the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. They're fantastic. Okay, I will. Okay, I will write you all down. Lauren, Kathy.
Can I
Julie,
also,
Mara.
Yeah. Also, just to share, I'm happy to make sure you get on that agenda for June. So I apologize for being a barrier in this last go-around of
You
that.
weren't.
And they agreed in the last meeting. I'm like, what month are we in? They agreed in their meeting, just last week. They won't be meeting in July or August. They typically do take the summer months off, which is also just something to consider for you all. You have that option. And that you have flexibility in terms of what liaising might look like for you all. So that can be sending a person consistently. That can be deciding, we're gonna go to their committee quarterly. Whatever that might be, just know that you have flexibility in that structure. And what's the last piece? There was the last bit I was gonna say as well. Oh my goodness. Oh, and that they meet, I think you're all aware, but they meet every third Thursday. at 7 p.m. in this same room. And just because there's a liaison, like a designated liaison attending, does not mean that others who are interested in attending can't drop by.
Yep, yeah.
Cool.
I've sat in on a number of their meetings. They have their room set up so that they are on the platform. I can't pronounce the word that it's actually is. And then they have an audience, so anybody can come. So what we can figure out is, we can say all of you are welcome to go. So it's June 15th is the next meeting. And I mean, I think it would be fantastic if everybody who wants to be there could be there. And then we can have that be our introduction and then figure out a cycle maybe for when. Okay. Sorry, I'm like super thirsty. Okay. And then related to that, I also did, Lauren, I didn't have you put on the agenda today for the human library because you were on vacation and I didn't want
that's
to
fine.
put you on the
I
spot.
hate to say I've done
Okay.
that. I have
No,
done
that's
anything
fine.
else, so.
And I actually also felt like this kind of was like a step forward too. It's like we need to develop, establish a relationship with Human Rights and Inclusion Committee because we don't want to do a big event like that without
Right, without
them.
me.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm sorry, 7, you said?
Yes, they are at 7 o'clock. So the next meeting is June 15th at 7 p.m.
Got it.
Okay. And their meetings sometimes run long and late. So,
Yeah,
but
I
you
Yes.
don't always have to stay for the whole thing.
Right, and if there's something specific that you all want to bring up, I can make sure that you're on the agenda in the beginning rather than the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. See, this is the benefit of having, one of the many benefits of having Jasmine. Okay. Any other questions about that aspect? Nope. Then we are
I
going
have
to.
a question.
Oh,
Are there
yes.
other groups that you, at
Oh,
this time,
right.
have a particular interest in liaising with?
School committee?
Did I'm like, I'll write that down.
Yeah.
Did I read your mind, or is that?
Well, that's just a tough one.
I know.
Because of logistics of who and how they make liaisons on there.
Oh, okay. Do they have like an official?
It's they don't have a lot of liaisons.
Okay, then
It's
that's fine.
usually a
But even
student.
somebody to like consistently go and report back. That's what I was more thinking of, not
And-
necessarily like formal.
And this is why I say liaisons can take on a different structure, because from what I've observed with school committee, that's what it might be. So it might be like us, it might not be an official capacity, but it might be you going and bringing us reports out from school committee, and then still maybe planning quarterly in their public comment
Yep.
section or something, just
Just a
going
reminder.
to share that you exist
Yep.
and all of that. It depends on the group.
Yeah. Okay. Other groups? I feel like planning is, I mean, we talked about like just meeting with some of the departments, and that might make more sense than necessarily having to like have us all be spread thin around all the meetings. But if there is a group that you think could use a connection and you're interested, they don't necessarily have to be together. You could say this group needs some attention, and I don't want to be that person. But if you think of either of those, let me know, and we can start kind of making those connections.
Were you gonna say like the land use and planning and?
Yeah, I was just thinking like from a planning, zoning.
Yeah, I feel like that makes sense, you know,
Yeah.
because that's like we can
Yep.
get something at its genesis and make sure it's, accessible to some degree, or at least have that talk with them, be it a park or.
Yeah,
It would be good to be with recreation too.
yeah.
Yeah,
True,
parks and
yeah,
recreation. I was thinking that was part of the same thing, but.
Okay. So for some of these, it could just start with showing up at their meeting as public and during public comment saying, "Hi, I'm here from the Accessibility Commission. We just want you to know that we exist." Because I think after having, what was it, 17 years of no group.
Yeah, they probably
They're
just assume.
Yeah, there are probably plenty of people who are on the committees or work in town who have never known there to be a commission. So, yeah, I can kind of do some searching for when these meetings are, and we can put them out and have people sign up to go to them. Okay, so that's on my to-do list. Okay. The last thing, and I think we'll be able to finish by 7, is our DEI report from Jasmine. So new addition to our agenda, Jasmine offered as something that she does for human rights and inclusion, and I thought that it made a lot of sense since it's a great way to learn about what's going on.
Great. So this will be lengthier than it normally will be, but it won't be 10 minutes long. So again, just the purpose of this segment, this DEI report out, is really just in my role as liaison between the town and this committee to dedicate a little bit of time each meeting to share any relevant information that might relate to your work, coming from the town and wide, or even just tidbits of knowledge, because I know several of us expressed interest in continuing to learn as part of the reasons why we joined this committee. So I wanted to just mirror the town interest. The town employees also enjoyed working with this committee. And I also heard from Stephen King at Engineering interest as well in thinking about how this committee can support their work too. So once people have started to hear about your existence, there is interest in, do you think maybe they could look over this plan, or I would love to loop them into this conversation. So I really look forward to a future where that could be part of the structure, where people are coming in to present different things. I even pitched it in a planning meeting for the upcoming holiday festival. There were some questions about, is the grass going to be accessible? And I was like, I know someone who can answer that. So hopefully this being a mechanism where the community can come in and say, hey, we're having this event, we just wanted to run by some things by you, that could do wonders.
That
really
would be
for the community.
amazing.
So I'd love to continue to work towards that. I also just wanted to share two functions of our website. So we did get a new website, the town, and it's been live for a while now. One important feature, I think for this group in particular, located on the equity and inclusion page, so that's my department page, is what's called an incident bias report form. And this is a form that I created for the community to share if there are any incidents related to discrimination or bias as they relate to social identities. This is a space for that information to be documented. What that means, that information goes directly to me and then gets cataloged, so that when I am in broader conversations, I can bring up the data and evidence and have those anecdotes ready to say, actually, for example, we need parking because I've gotten 3 reports in this forum that they can't find parking here. Things like that. It does have an anonymous option, so like the contact information is an optional piece, because right now, again, right, I want to be able to, for people in the community who are like, we don't have a problem here, right? We know there's a problem, and so I want that to be able to support your work. So please share that widely.
Awesome.
I also wanted to share on that website, there is, if on the main page, the event calendar is located at the very bottom that has all of our meetings scheduled. And it does have a function on that page to notify you of upcoming meetings. So you can opt into texts, you can opt into downloading the meetings directly onto your calendars. So that's just a useful function to keep in mind, especially if you're expressing interest in these other committees and things like that. Having that 2-day in advance reminder is a cool function, and I've already had a couple people subscribe to that, which is cool. So that's about the website. I wanted to elevate 2 library initiatives that I think are DEI and access related initiatives. They're currently doing a donation drive from now till June 2nd to collect items for Boomerang thrift stores. These stores work with Fenway Health to provide funding for LGBT+ healthcare, education, research, and advocacy. So again, thinking about healthcare access for our LGBT+ community. They are going to have a sorting party on June 3rd from 11 to 1 in the Gordon Room. I'll find this flyer to send out with the minutes. And they will also have, they'll be collecting donations during our Pride Party, which I will talk about later. The second thing that they're doing in the realm of language access is that the library, with the help of a woman named Teresa Osorio, is having adult English second language conversation circles for beginners. It's on the first and third Saturdays from 10 to 11 in the library class, and you can register on the library website. I strongly encourage you to share this as much as you can. We often run into the conundrum where I know there's a need for this in the community, but but no one is attending. And so if no one's attending, the assumption is there's not a need. And right now we know there's a challenge accessing a lot of our non-native speaking communities. And so if we can continue to elevate this, that also gives us now, with folks who are attending, another way to build connections with that group.
Is this like a time for people who are not native speakers to come in and speak, or is this like a class, or
It
is
sounds like it's an
just,
informal conversation hour, so you would just go in to just practice your English, which is really cool. Any other questions about anything I've shared up so far? I'm like moving through it.
It's okay.
Okay. I also just wanted to uplift that May is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, so celebrating the achievements and contributions from these communities in our culture, history, and society. One of the strongest disability justice advocates that I know is a woman by the name of Mia Mingus, and she's a self-identified physically disabled, queer Korean, transracial, and transnational adoptee, meaning she was adopted by parents who are a different race and from a different country. And she coined this term called access intimacy, which speaks to the experience of someone with a disability interacting with a person or being in a space where their access needs are just simply understood, and how that can bring a real level of comfort and peace that might not be someone's typical experience, right? Like we just talked about with the voting, for example. So I really wanted to name that, especially for those of us who are practicing allyship, of thinking about how we can support the pursuit of access intimacy. And just to uplift her voice a little bit more, she says access for the sake of access or inclusion is not necessarily liberatory, but access done in the service of love, justice, connection, and community is liberatory and has the power to transform. So again, that's Mia Mingus. Google her, she's great. And then I have a bunch of events in June. June 1st, so a week from tonight, at this very time, we'll be wrapping up the party. But there will be flag raising to kick off our Pride Month. So the police department at 3:30 will be raising their flag, and NAGLI actually will be coming to support them. They are the
North Shore Alliance.
Association. Okay, it's some
lesbian,
combination
gay youth,
of
yeah.
Alliance for LGBT plus youth. The town will be raising their flag in front of Town Hall at 4 p.m. This is their 10th year of doing that, which I think is incredible. And so there will be speeches and student involvement and things like that. And then from 5 to 7, we will have the Pride Party on the library lawn. So music, raffles, trivia, story time, free food, lawn games. It's gonna be great. I'm tired in the planning, but that's how I know it's gonna be great. There's been a lot of work that went into that. Additionally, June 11th is Race Amity Day Festival. That will be on the library lawn from 1 to 3. Again, I will share all these flyers. Race Amity Day is an acknowledgement of cross-racial friendships that have furthered racial equity throughout history. So it celebrates multicultural community, elevates kindness, respect, and civility across difference. So more musical performances, participation, and an interview of a cross-racial friendship between Dr. Charles Desmond and Dave McKenna, who are 2 members of our Human Rights and Inclusion Committee meeting. The last one, our annual Juneteenth celebration. This is our 3rd year celebrating Juneteenth here in this community. That will be on the 19th in front of Town Hall from 2 to 3. North Shore Juneteenth Association is coming in to bring poetry, some song, and other and words from leaders in the region. So again, just a lot of events, an opportunity for even this committee also to get out there and start letting people know, hey, we're here, how can we help? And that's everything. Any questions?
Thank you.
They won't all be this long, I promise.
Those are all on the town calendar,
Yep.
right?
I hope so.
Oh, okay.
If you don't see them, let me know. That means I need to let somebody know.
Oh, it just ended.
It was fun.
Huh, okay, I will text her later, and just check, I don't know if it just automatically,
That's,
I've never
At
seen it
7.
actually boot.
is she on Zoom?
that was Teams, so, but I have her
I've never
phone
seen
number.
Teams.
Probably a
actually
time
boot.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay, so, well, we don't have anything else other than new business. I'm not trying to rush anybody, but so if you have something that you wanted to bring up, this meeting that we haven't discussed before, now is your time. Or no. You can also, I also will entertain motions to adjourn. Okay, we have from Mara, motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
Second, JD. Okay, we are adjourned at 7:01.